Okay, hello, welcome back to Small Things Brought Together. My name is Robin Love, and we are having an extra special episode this month. I am thrilled to have with me Gaayathri Sukantha Murugan, who is the featured artist at Bardo 29 for this summer. So, before Gaaya begins she's going to talk about her work that she created in this space. I thought it would be useful to just introduce what is Bardo 29, and then we'll introduce who is Gaaya as an artist, and then get a tour of her piece. So Bardo 29 is a project that came out of the House Museum, which is a project that was started in 2005 in Gillams, a town on the west coast of Newfoundland, where I live, in my house. And it was a project exploring tourism and culture in Newfoundland. And it evolved over the course of 10 years, and then it closed. But the desire, which is to say my desire, to continue to have an art space in my house persisted, so I created this space that is called Bardo 29. The 29 references my address. And the Bardo, if you're familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, there's this idea of the Bardo realm, and there's many Bardo realms, and there are these in-between times where we have opportunities to shift our karma, and the biggest one being between the time of death and rebirth. So whatever mind state you enter into death, you can either bring a more advantageous birth or a less advantageous birth. So I called my space that because it is a kind of in-between space. As you can see, we're seated on a set of steps, so it leads down into the basement, but there's this sort of amazing little space that's sort of neither a room nor a foyer nor something else. So it's kind of its own little funny Bardo realm. And I've used it as an invitation to artists to create work that is new, experimental, takes a risk, gives them a chance to explore something new that could have the potential to change the trajectory of their art, but in a way that feels kind of playful and safe at the same time. So I was very excited to meet Gaaya and then show her the space, and she agreed to make her installation here for the summer of 2021. So that's the little Bardo 29 intro, and I would love to introduce you to Gaaya. And what I usually do is I ask artists to kind of introduce themselves so that you can sort of decide what you want to share with people. So.
Okay, I can do that. Hi everyone, I'm Gaaya or Gaayathri. I'm fine with being called either one. I am from Chennai, India, where coincidentally Robin was for a little while, very close to my house, years before we even met.
We might have passed each other on the street.
That is so cool. Half a world away. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, I am an interdisciplinary artist and a visual art student at Grenfell campus. This fall, I'll be going into my 4th year. I can't believe I'm graduating next year.
I know.
So strange. This is my first solo exhibition, which is super cool and super exciting. And I usually work with photography and printmaking and painting and digital art and installation and textiles and all of the mediums, which is really nice. I usually make work that's self-representational or expressing myself as an artist, or self-reflection or self-discovery, kind of using my art to figure out my place in the world, which I think is a nice way to figure that out.
For sure, especially, I mean, it's interesting that you figuring your place in the world, like half a world away from where you grew up. You know, that's an interesting way to go about it.
Yeah, I've also spent a majority of my adult life here in Newfoundland in Corner Brook.
Wow.
So it kind of makes sense that I'm finding my adult life here.
Yeah. So what, before we take you into, give us a tour of the installation, so just as a reminder, it's a small space, and part of that is good and part of it's challenging, right? So before we even get into the space, when you first saw it, tell me, like, did you have, and I said, oh, you know, would you like to do this thing? Like, what was do you remember your response?
Well, first I remember thinking, that is an amazing opportunity, and it would be great to actually use the space and take advantage of that opportunity. And so I did, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the space initially. So it took some time to think about it. I came up with an idea to paint the space a very dark color. I'm trying not to give away too many spoilers before I show you all the installation. There was a lot of other stuff I wanted to do, but when it came down to actually looking at the space and deciding what was feasible, my idea went on a whole 360-degree turn, which I've heard is the case for a lot of artists, which is reassuring.
So is this your first site-specific piece that you've done?
I would say, yeah. I believe so.
Yeah, which is different. I mean, studio work is one thing, working in a space is another, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Working in a space, using the entire space as my project, as my installation, is a whole different experience, and a very interesting one at that.
Yeah, and even, you know, one thing that I've been aware of as you've been working is that it's a full sensory experience. And I know we don't want to give it away, but, you know, I feel like all the senses are pretty much engaged, you know, very consciously, even if the engagement is there, it isn't there. But I feel like you've done a great job of really, like, taking up the possibility of site-specific work in that way, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity, and it was very rewarding to work on this.
Yeah, and I will just say, you know, I've had this is our 4th presentation at Bardo 29, and, you know, the invitation is to do whatever you want, really. And so when Gaaya said, oh, yeah, I want to paint the walls very, very dark, I was like, have I gone too far? But no, I'm so pleased, so pleased, and so excited. So shall we take a look?
Sure. Did we ever tell them what the name of it was?
No, please. Can you share?
I will. So the show is called Getting There, and it's sort of a play on words because it incorporates the theme, the location, because this is based in Gillams, across the bay from Corner Brook. Open by appointment only. So make sure Robin's home and available. Yeah, it's across the bay, and it's about the theme. And it's also about the process, because the process takes some time to get there. And the name of the show is Getting There.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a sub. There's a sub part of the exhibition that isn't necessarily like obvious to anyone who might come, but Gaaya doesn't drive, and so so I would go. It's about a 40-minute drive to Corner Brook, so I would go pick you up and bring you back, and then you'd work for hours, and then it would be like time to go home. And so like the getting there is actually has been a big part of it.
It's a very, very relevant part of the whole experience.
Yeah, yeah. And then we've kind of joked about people in Corner Brook's willingness or unwillingness to come to Gillams. So we'll see who gets here.
I sure hope a lot of people do.
Yes, they will. They will. Yeah. All right. Anything else before that you want to share?
We have a closing reception on September the 18th. And that's all the information I'll give out for now.
All right.
But please come if you're able to.
Yeah, and we'll repeat that at the end, and I'll put it in the video description too, so you'll have all the info. Yeah, so it'd be great to have people come out and experience this. And they'll have their own experience coming down.
And the great thing about art is that you can interpret it in your own specific, unique way and relate it to your own experiences in life.
Totally, yes. And because it is multisensory, there's a lot of opportunity for that, I feel. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to pause the recording and get the space ready for our tour.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
See you shortly. That was very funny.
Okay, so we're back, and we're in the space now, and as you can see, there's a theme of darkness, and there's some elements in this installation. So, yeah, I guess before I sort of ask you more specific questions, like, is there anything you want to say by way of introduction to the experience of being in the space?
Well, this is getting there, and it is a really nice space. It is a small space, so just be warned if you're claustrophobic. It's painted black. That's the big reveal.
And there's a black light.
Yes, there is. And yeah, that's it. And the rest of it you'll find out now, soon.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's start with the most obvious question. Why black walls? Why black walls?
Well, this project for me is about mental health and my depression and my recovery from depression, which is still ongoing. And I kind of wanted that to be reflected in my installation in my space, well, your space. So I chose black because it relates a lot to how I'm feeling during my worst depressive episodes. It's very dark. It kind of feels like all your bad thoughts are converging on you, engulfing you. And the smallness of the space lends to that as well, because to me, depression just feels like very smothering. So I thought that black paint would best reflect that, as well as this, which you'll find out more about in a second now.
Yeah, so there's also this dark curtain, which we started the conversation sitting on the stairs that lead down to the space when the curtain was pulled aside.
Yes.
So in the space, it's actually quite important to pull the curtain so you get the full effect of the darkness and the black light. And the curtain itself, like I was saying earlier, I feel like you did this beautiful job of engaging the senses. So I have to say the curtain's one of my favorite parts in the sense of
me too.
Like it has a texture, it has a weight, and what you alluded to about like the smothering, like I feel that, but I also feel like there's like a comfort, and there's this play, there's a tension between that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, this is also about my path to recovery, and there's things that in my life are comfortable and warm and nice that help with that.
So the fabric that you have behind you has a completely different, obviously different feel and quality to it. In fact, it's if you're picking it up, maybe we'll even do a little close up. It has it's glittery. Let's see. Here we go. Yeah, you can kind of see that it's quite sparkly. And so since I had sort of the front row seat to your process of installing and creating this project, I'm just gonna hopefully send this back. Get you in there again. You know, I got to see the whole sort of like elements coming together. And as you started, I mean, the first thing, of course, was the black paint.
Yes.
And you always knew you wanted to use your photographs.
Yes.
So we haven't quite talked about them, but if you see in the space, there's a couple of them right there. Maybe talk about them first, then I'll grill you about the other parts.
Well, again, the photographs.
Yes, I'm sorry, I am not the world's best cinematographer, so I freely admit, actually, I'm just going to make it a little simpler. So
There you go.
okay, and I might just move the camera physically.
The photos are of lights, and my camera was set on the long exposure setting. And for those of you who attended my artist talk a while ago, you would have seen these and heard about my process of making these. Basically what it is that I set my camera at a very high exposure length, and I take pictures of lights, and I either move around the camera or the lights itself, or use the lens to zoom in, which kind of produces these very cool looking patterns, and it feels like you're traveling through not quite a time vortex, but something similar like that. And I feel like these are kind of reflective of my mental health journey as well, where everything is kind of chaotic looking, but it is also getting somewhere. It's getting there.
Yeah, and so you knew you were going to hang the photos, and that the walls would be black. And did you know you wanted to use the fabric as well, or is that something that came about once you were in the space and you started imagining?
Well, I think the curtain part of it was always going to be there, but as for the other stuff, no, I didn't actually plan on using fabric. But then after the light came to be part of the space, I thought I should play with that more. Moving on to actually the sparkly, this is a blanket. It's very, very, very plush. I thought that this would kind of show the brighter spots in my life. Because like I said, depression is not very fun. And it does kind of feel smothering, but it is really nice to kind of have these little moments, these kind of bright parts of your life that you keep around to remind you that it's not going to be all this smothering all the time. It's not going to always be this dark. You are going to have a silver lining. This is a silver blanket. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if it's all right, I'm going to move to the other door.
Yeah, sure.
And just show that there's also some painting involved. Was this something that came about as well when you were starting to work in the space?
Well,
or you had this idea?
I knew I wanted to paint something. I was initially going to be painting on the walls of the space itself, but then Robin offered me the use of this door, and I thought it would be a great way to make use of the panels on the door. I'm not entirely sure if you can see it, but
yeah. So it's like a 6/6, right? No, 6/12, 9. So it has a bunch of panels. So those are, it's a door with glass panels, But the panels had never had their, I mean, this is like technical information, but I never took the peely stuff off the glass, and so you were able to paint right over it.
Exactly, so I just painted all of it black and added some neon pink, once again alluding to the brighter parts in the darkness, as you can see. And these are more of my photos, as you can see.
Yeah. Which then lead to this other fabric, which comes into play. A little higher. Yeah.
This is a very beautiful reflective mirror fabric. Once again, I thought it would be a good idea to play with the reflections and the light and the sparkle of the space. And I really thought that these little tiny mirrors and the way that they're reflecting the black light made it a very nice effect. And it also fits in because it's kind of a theme of self-reflection, and it's reflective of my mental health journey.
Yeah, and I think it's, yeah, for me, one of the things that I really am appreciating is that you've taken, like the idea of reflection and light, the way light behaves, and you're presenting it with paint, you're presenting it in these photos, you're presenting it with the reflective fabric and the glittery fabric and in the light choice itself. So there's just a lot in and I think while we were getting set up, I was saying, it's important to say that even though it's a tiny space, for me, spending some time and letting my eyes adjust to this new light has been really rewarding. So it's tempting to think, okay, I'm in this little space, like, got it, okay, bye, but no, it's like to stay and spend a little time in here and even just like sit on the floor or whatever and like really take your time, let your eyes adjust. There's like a lot more to take in if you're willing to take the time with it.
Absolutely. And it is, like Robin said, there's a lot of little details when you let your eyes adjust. It's a whole experience. It needs to be experienced. It's not just to be seen or looked at. It needs to be experienced.
Yeah, and one thing, as soon as like the glitter fabric came in, it was like, oh, cool, like disco. But no, that is not the auditory experience.
No. So as for the auditory experience, when you come down here, especially here across the bay, it's just very quiet and peaceful. But when you come down here to the space, it's very quiet, and yes, it's peaceful, but it is also, in a way, slightly unsettling, because this is a dark, small space. It's quiet. You can't hear much except the sound of your own breathing, or the sound of your cell phone vibrations, or very small things that you otherwise wouldn't take notice of, like the electrical hum of a refrigerator, for example. So when you come to this quiet space and you kind of listen to that silence, you exist in that silence, and when I'm in a depressive episode, I find that the only thing I can think about is bad stuff pertaining to my depression and mental health. And everything else is just quiet. all the good stuff, all the happiness, all the bright spots, all the bright parts of my life, they're just quiet, out of the picture. And
Yeah,
I think...
Well, I mean, it's sort of like the curtain at the entrance, where I feel
Yeah.
like you've like played with the tension between what is comforting and what is suffocating, and the silence comes into that too, where like there's something sort of beautiful and contemplative about the sort of dark silence.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, when do you like cross the threshold into something that feels a little darker or more sinister in that? Yeah.
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 And everybody experiences depression and mental health issues differently too. So I just wanted to shine a light, as it were, on my own experience.
Yeah, and you know, truthfully, I mean, I guess I'll just keep repeating myself, but I feel like the tension is really well done in terms of I don't like when I move through the space and then I go back upstairs, and it really does feel like you're merging back into the world, and you see the colors of the world brighter because you've been in this dark space, but which, you know, has its own reference to like depression. But like I don't come out feeling hopeless. That's my experience of it.
And that's good, because that's also where I'm at with my mental health recovery. It doesn't feel hopeless. There are little reminders of things, of good things, and of happiness, which is really nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is very essential to recovery and support.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I could say as the witness to your process, you know, sort of seeing you work out these challenges of the space and of the materials to some extent, it's like, it's been really, you know, great to see how you've, like, come up against an obstacle and then sort of figured it out. And I know, like, so just to share a little of our process, I guess I would call it, is that, you know, Gaia is very busy. And so it sort of ended up being that Sundays were your day, and you'd come out and spend sometimes like 6 hours.
Yeah, I think like the first couple times were about 6 hours each.
Yeah, so like that's an investment, and like sort of, I feel like, yeah, watching kind of like each step sort of like asking, like causing the next question to be asked. Like, okay, now the walls are black, now what? Okay, now this, now what? Now this, now what? And yeah, I feel like maybe that's almost partly why there's this hopeful feeling, because it's not like you reached a dead end. It's just like there's just more. Like each obstacle actually created a opportunity.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like you've reached a dead end. It just feels like you've reached an in-between space, which is kind of the point of Bardo 29.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for getting that plug in there.
Of course.
Yeah, so I'm super excited for people to come and have their own experience here. And yeah, as you mentioned, people can just get in touch with me via email or social media, and links will be below to make an appointment to come out. And this will be up all through August and most of September.
Yes.
And we will have a closing reception for the community on the 18th of September.
Yeah. And once again, take your time in this space. Take your time to experience the space and the installation.
Yeah.
I promise you that it's worth it.
Yeah. You can't see me, I'm off camera, but I'm like shaking my head very vigorously. Yes. Yes, there's definitely benefits to just hanging out in the space.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being the artist this summer. I'm so thrilled. And for taking time to talk about your process and the project. Is there anything else before we say goodbye?
Well, I'll do a self-plug. Sure.
Yes, I love that, yes.
I'm on the board of directors of Eastern Edge. I am on the board of VANL, which is Visual Artists of Newfoundland and Labrador, and also the student representative for the same. I'm currently working with CB Nuit as the junior marketing member. CB Nuit happens every year at the end of September as well, so that's more community art. So keep your September full of art.
Yes, and also I'll give you a plug too that, your embrace of the art community in Newfoundland has been so, impressive to see, and your willingness to step into these leadership roles. It's so wonderful, and I think the province and the art community is grateful. I know I am.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah. Especially as an international student. It's very nice to be a part of the art community in Newfoundland because it's very welcoming. It's very welcoming to people in general.
I mean, that's, I think, one of the benefits of it being smaller and, close-knit is that you can make an impact, kind of enter into it, and if you're willing to put in some sweat equity, you can really have an impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for letting me use the space.
Yes.
Right. Bye, everyone.